I had been planning to propose to my girlfriend for 6 months. The ring was perfect. Our relationship felt solid, and I was certain she would say yes. We had been together for 3 years, built a life in our shared apartment, and talked about our future constantly. That night at our anniversary dinner at La Maison, I got down on one knee, opened the box, and her face changed. Instead of joy, I saw panic. Before I continue with how my life changed after that night, let me know where you are watching from and hit that like and subscribe button if you have ever had your heart broken when you least expected it. My name is Christopher, and at 32 years old I thought I had my life figured out. I worked as a software engineer at a tech company in Boston, earning a comfortable salary that allowed me to save for our future together. Jessica was 29, a talented graphic designer who captured my attention from the moment we met at a summer barbecue 3 years ago. My friend Tyler had invited me, and she was there with his girlfriend. When Jessica laughed, it was impossible not to notice her. She had this way of throwing her head back completely uninhibited that drew everyone in. We started talking over grilled corn and cheap beer. The conversation flowed so naturally that we ended up sitting on a porch swing until 2 in the morning, long after everyone else had left or passed out. She told me about her passion for design, her dreams of one day starting her own studio, and the travel she hoped to do. I shared my own aspirations of eventually becoming a development team leader, my love for hiking, and my questionable cooking skills. By the time I asked for her number, it felt like we had known each other for years. Our first official date was at La Maison, a French restaurant that was far outside my normal budget. I wanted to impress her, and the look on her face when she tasted the chocolate soufflé made every dollar worth it. After that night, we were inseparable. Weekends were filled with museum visits, hiking trails, and lazy Sunday mornings making pancakes. We met each other's families during the holidays, and both sets of parents seemed to approve. Her mom even pulled me aside at Thanksgiving and told me how happy Jessica seemed since meeting me. After 18 months of dating, we decided to move in together. We found a 2-bedroom apartment in Cambridge with enough space for her to set up a small home office. I paid 60% of the rent since I earned more, but we split all other expenses equally. Living together felt natural, like the obvious next step. I loved coming home to find her sketching at the kitchen table, music playing softly in the background. We developed our own little rituals, like Saturday morning coffee on our small balcony and cooking new recipes together on Wednesday nights. We traveled to California for a friend's wedding, spent a week at a cabin in Vermont during winter, and took a 10-day trip to Italy that Jessica had always dreamed about. In between, we built what I thought was a solid foundation. We talked about the house we would buy someday with enough yard space for a garden and maybe a dog. We discussed how many children we might want, and even joked about what we would be like as old people, sitting on rocking chairs complaining about technology. At least I thought we were on the same page about all of it. The decision to propose came after my college roommate got married last spring. During the reception, I watched Jessica catch the bouquet and smile. That night, she whispered that she thought we would throw an even better wedding someday. The next morning, I started researching engagement rings. I spent 3 months finding the perfect diamond. I wanted something that matched her understated elegance, nothing too flashy, but still special. I visited 8 different jewelers, compared countless stones, and finally selected a 1.5-carat oval diamond in a simple platinum setting. It cost $9,800, nearly all of my savings, but Jessica was worth it. I kept the ring hidden in a sock drawer inside an old watch box she never opened. During those months of planning, I confided in my best friend Ryan and my sister Allison. Both encouraged me, telling me Jessica and I were perfect together. I also asked her father for his blessing, an old-fashioned gesture that I knew would mean something to her family. He gave me a firm handshake and welcomed me to the family in advance. Everything seemed to be falling into place. Looking back now, I should have noticed the signs. Whenever our friends got engaged or married, Jessica would initially seem excited, but then become quiet afterward. When I brought up future plans beyond the next year, she would redirect the conversation or keep her responses vague. Once, when we passed a bridal shop, I joked about which dress she might choose someday. She smiled, but quickly pointed out a restaurant across the street she wanted to try. These were subtle shifts that I completely missed too, caught up in my own certainty about our future. For the proposal, I wanted everything to be perfect. I reserved a table at La Maison, the French restaurant, where we had our first date. I arranged with the manager to bring out the ring with dessert hidden under a silver dome. I even invited our closest friends to meet us at a bar nearby afterward to celebrate. The night before, I barely slept, rehearsing what I would say when I got down on one knee. I never once considered she might say no. The evening of the proposal started with promise. I left work early to pick up fresh flowers for our apartment and made sure the reservation was confirmed. Jessica texted that she would come home to change before dinner, and I felt a surge of nervous excitement every time I thought about how the night would end. When she arrived, something seemed off. She was distracted, checking her phone more than usual. I asked if everything was okay at work, and she mentioned a deadline for a difficult client, nothing unusual. She wore the blue dress I loved, the one she had worn on our first anniversary. Her hair was down the way I preferred it, and she had on the silver necklace I had given her for her birthday. Everything looked perfect on the surface, but her smile did not quite reach her eyes. In the Uber to the restaurant, she was quiet, looking out the window, rather than engaging in conversation. I attributed her mood to work stress and remained optimistic that the proposal would lift her spirits. At La Maison, we were seated at the best table in the house, the one by the window with a view of the small garden. I had requested it specifically, and slipped the maitre d' extra $50 to make sure we got it. The lighting was romantic, the music at the perfect volume. I ordered champagne to start, hoping to create a celebratory mood early. Jessica seemed to relax slightly after the first glass, but I noticed she kept checking her phone under the table. During the appetizer course, I tried to reminisce about our first date in this very restaurant 3 years ago. She smiled and participated in the conversation, but something was missing in her responses. They were shorter than usual, her laugh a bit forced. When her phone buzzed again, I caught a glimpse of the name Alex on her screen before she quickly turned it over. I knew she had a colleague named Alex, but had never heard her mention him with any frequency. Throughout the main course, I continued to try to create the romantic atmosphere I had envisioned. I brought up our trip to Italy the night we got caught in the rain in Florence and had to take shelter in a tiny gelato shop. This memory usually made her laugh, but tonight she merely nodded and said, "Yes, that was fun." Her eyes kept darting to her phone, and twice she excused herself to go to the restroom, taking the phone with her. Despite these warning signs, I was committed to my plan. When the waiter cleared our dinner plates, I gave him the signal. Minutes later, he returned with the special dessert, a chocolate soufflé with the words, "Will you marry me?" written in raspberry sauce around the edge of the plate. Before he removed the silver dome to reveal the ring, I moved from my chair and got down on one knee beside Jessica. The other diners around us noticed what was happening. Several pulled out phones to record the moment. The restaurant grew quieter as people anticipated the romantic scene about to unfold. I took her hand, which felt cold and stiff in mine, and looked up into her eyes. Instead of excitement, I saw what looked like terror. "Christopher, what are you doing?" she whispered, though. I think she knew exactly what was happening. I had practiced a speech about our love and our future, but in that moment, all I could say was, "Jessica, these past 3 years have been the happiest of my life. You are everything I have ever wanted. Will you marry me?" The waiter removed the dome, revealing the ring box nestled beside the soufflé. I opened it to show the diamond catching the light. Several people in the restaurant gasped or sighed appreciatively. A woman at the next table had her hands clasped over her heart, smiling broadly at what she thought was a beautiful moment. Jessica stared at the ring. Her eyes filled with tears, but not the joyful kind I had expected. She looked from the ring to my face, then to the people watching us. The silence stretched uncomfortably long. Finally, in a voice barely above a whisper, she said, "I am sorry, Christopher. I cannot." The restaurant seemed to collectively hold its breath. My mind could not process her words. I remained frozen on one knee, still holding the open ring box, as if staying in position might somehow change her answer. The tears were streaming down her face now. She grabbed her purse and stood up. "I need some air," she said, and rushed toward the door. I was left kneeling beside an empty chair surrounded by strangers whose expressions had transformed from delight to second-hand embarrassment and pity. The waiter, unsure what to do, awkwardly placed the bill folder on the table and retreated. Somehow, I managed to close the ring box and shove it in my pocket. I threw enough cash on the table to cover the meal, and a generous tip then followed Jessica outside. She was standing on the sidewalk, arms wrapped around herself despite the warm evening. When I approached, she would not meet my eyes. "We should go home," she said already, opening the rideshare app on her phone. The ride back to our apartment was excruciating. 23 minutes of complete silence with an Uber driver who had clearly sensed the tension and kept the radio turned up to avoid the awkwardness. I stared out the window, the ring box burning a hole in my pocket, my mind racing with questions. My phone buzzed repeatedly, with messages from our friends waiting at the bar expecting happy news. I turned it off without responding. Once inside our apartment, the silence finally broke. Jessica kicked off her heels and turned to face me, her makeup smeared from crying. "I never meant to hurt you," she began, a phrase I would soon learn to hate. "I just could not say yes when I am not sure." Not sure about what I asked, my voice surprisingly calm, despite the hurricane of emotions inside me. Not sure about marrying me, or not sure about us. She sank onto our couch, suddenly looking exhausted. Both, I guess. I have been feeling trapped lately, like our whole future is already decided and I am just going through the motions. The words hit me like physical blows. Trapped. Going through the motions. We had built this life together, made every decision. As a team, at least. That is what I had thought. "How long have you felt this way?" I asked, still standing, unable to join her on the couch we had picked out together at a furniture store a year ago. "A few months, maybe longer," she admitted. I kept thinking the feeling would pass, that I was just stressed about work, or needed a change of scenery. But when you proposed tonight, I realized it was more than that. And you never thought to tell me all those conversations about our future, the house we would buy, even kids. Was that all just pretend? She looked down at her hands. I meant it at the time, I think. Or I wanted to mean it. "You are such a good man, Christopher. You have this whole life mapped out, and it is a good life. I just do not know if it is the life I want anymore." As she spoke, her phone lit up on the coffee table. I saw that name again, Alex, with a message asking if she was okay. Something clicked in my brain, a suspicion that had been forming since dinner. "Who is Alex?" I asked, my voice flat. Her eyes widened slightly, a flash of guilt crossing her face before she could hide it. "Just a coworker," she said too quickly. "A coworker who texts you at 11 p.m. to check if you are okay." She reached for the phone, but I was faster. I know it was an invasion of privacy, something I had never done before, but in that moment, I needed to know. I opened the message thread and started scrolling through their exchanges. The most recent. "Are you okay? Did you tell him?" And before that, "Remember, you deserve to be happy. You can do this." And earlier still, "Last night was amazing. I cannot stop thinking about you." I looked up from the phone, my hands shaking. Jessica was crying again, but I felt nothing but cold numbness spreading through me. "How long?" I asked. "Nothing physical happened until 2 weeks ago," she said. "But we have been talking for about 3 months. He joined the design team in April. 3 months. While I was shopping for engagement rings, she was developing feelings for someone else. While I was planning our future, she was creating an escape route. "Have you been to his place?" I asked, each word causing physical pain. She nodded, unable to speak. "When I proposed tonight, were you already planning to leave me for him?" "No," she insisted. "It is not like that. I am confused about everything, about what I want, about my feelings for both of you. I never meant for any of this to happen." I handed her phone back suddenly, unable to look at it or her. I walked to our bedroom and closed the door, needing space to breathe, to think. I sat on the edge of the bed, the ring box still in my pocket. I took it out and opened it, looking at the diamond that had seemed so perfect just hours ago. Now it represented nothing but my own naivety. I did not sleep that night. I lay on top of the covers, staring at the ceiling, replaying our relationship in my mind. Had there been other signs I missed? When exactly had her feelings changed? I remembered late nights at the office that had become more frequent texts she would answer, while turning away from me, the decreasing intimacy between us that I had, attributed to normal relationship evolution. Around 3 in the morning, I finally admitted to myself that this revelation, as painful as it was, explained so much. The relationship I thought we had was not real, at least not anymore. By dawn, I had made my decision. When Jessica emerged from the guest room where she had spent the night, I was sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee, the ring box in front of me. She looked terrible with puffy eyes, and yesterday's makeup still smudged. She made herself coffee in silence, then hesitantly joined me at the table. "I think we need some time apart," she said. "Maybe a break to figure things out." I shook my head. "There is nothing to figure out, Jessica. You have been emotionally, if not physically, involved with another man for months. You rejected my proposal. You do not want the future I thought we were building together." "I never said I wanted to end things completely," she protested. "I just need space to think." "That is not what I am offering," I said, surprised by my own resolve. "I want you to move out, within 2 weeks." Her mouth fell open in shock. "You are kicking me out, just like that?" "Yes, I am. This apartment lease is in my name. I pay most of the rent. And I cannot live with someone who has betrayed my trust this completely." "But where am I supposed to go?" she asked, tears forming again. "Perhaps Alex has room at his place," I suggested, unable to keep the bitterness from my voice. "This is not fair, Christopher. You cannot just throw away 3 years because I made a mistake and was not ready to get married." "I am not throwing away anything," I replied. "You did that when you started seeing him behind my back. When you let me plan a proposal while knowing you had feelings for someone else. The time, to be honest, was before I got down on one knee, in front of a restaurant full of strangers. The next week was unbearable. Jessica seemed to believe I would change my mind if she cried enough or reminded me of enough good memories. She even called my mother, trying to get her to intervene. My mom, to her credit, told me she would support whatever decision I made, though she expressed sadness about the situation. Our mutual friends were divided. Some thought I was being too harsh, that relationships go through phases, and we could work through this with counseling. Others, particularly those who had experienced cheating themselves, fully supported my decision. Ryan, my best friend, came over with beer and pizza, simply sitting with me in solidarity without pushing for details I was not ready to share. Jessica started packing her things gradually. She would take a few items each day, as if moving slowly might somehow reverse my decision. Each time she came and went, we had the same conversation in different words. She would apologize, say she was confused, ask for another chance. I would remain firm in my decision, the pain still too raw to consider forgiveness. One evening, when she was collecting her books, I overheard her on the phone in what had been her office. She was talking to Alex, her voice low but not low enough. "He is really going through with it," she was saying. "I thought he would cool down after a few days, but he seems completely done with me." There was a pause as she listened to his response. "I do not know," she continued. "Part of me is relieved, honestly. I was feeling so suffocated, but I never expected it to end like this." Her words confirmed what I already knew, but still hurt to hear directly. Our relationship had become a constraint to her, something she wanted to escape. In that moment, any lingering doubt about my decision disappeared. I was doing the right thing for both of us, even if she did not see it yet. During her packing, I discovered more evidence of her relationship with Alex. A concert ticket stub in her desk drawer for a show she had told me she attended with girlfriends. A coffee shop receipt from a Sunday when she said she was working at the office. A gift bag with expensive cologne hidden in her closet, clearly not intended for me. Each discovery was a fresh cut, but also a confirmation that I was not overreacting. I learned that Jessica had been confiding in Alex about feeling trapped in our relationship for months. She had described me as safe and kind, but predictable. She had complained about my plans for our future, calling them conventional and boring. Reading those words in texts she had forgotten to delete was like having the person I loved most in the world reveal she had secretly despised me all along. By the second week, most of her things were gone. Our apartment, once filled with her artwork and design books, looked half empty. I had taken down the photos of us, unable to look at our smiling faces knowing what I knew now. The space felt both desolate and liberating, a physical representation of my new reality. The day Jessica moved out completely was surreal. She had rented a small truck and enlisted 2 friends to help with the furniture we had agreed was hers. I made myself scarce during the process, going for a long walk along the Charles River to avoid the awkwardness. When I returned, her key was on the kitchen counter with a handwritten letter I could not bring myself to read immediately. That night, alone in what was now just my apartment, I finally opened the envelope. Her letter was 5 pages long, full of apologies, explanations, and memories. She wrote about how much she had loved me, how confused she had been, how she never meant to hurt me. The final paragraph was what finally broke through my numbness. I know now that you deserved someone who was as sure about you as you were about me. I was too cowardly to admit my doubts until it was too late. Please know that despite everything, the years we shared were real and precious to me. I hope someday you can forgive me, even if you cannot forget. I cried that night for the first time since the proposal, not just for the relationship I had lost, but for the future. I had been so certain of that would never come to pass. I allowed myself that one night of complete grief before resolving to move forward. The first month alone was the hardest. I developed insomnia, often finding myself awake at 3 a.m., replaying memories and conversations looking for missed signals. Food lost its taste. I lost 12 pounds without trying. Friends worried, checking in daily with texts and invitations I mostly declined. Work became my refuge, the only place where I could focus on something besides my personal life for hours at a time. My sister Allison was my strongest support. She flew in from Chicago for a weekend, helped me rearrange the apartment to make it feel more mine, and listened without judgment as I processed what had happened. She did not try to fix me or rush my healing, simply providing presence when I needed it most. When I was ready, I started rebuilding. I joined a gym, channeling my hurt into physical exercise. I signed up for guitar lessons, something I had always wanted to do but never made time for. I reconnected with old friends who had drifted away during my relationship with Jessica. Each small step made the next one easier. 3 months after Jessica left, I enrolled in an advanced certification course for software development. The challenge of learning new skills kept my mind occupied and opened doors at work. 6 months after the breakup, I was promoted to lead developer with a substantial raise and more responsibility. My professional life was thriving, even as I continued to heal personally. I expanded my social circle, joining a hiking group that met on weekends. Through that group, I made new friends who knew nothing about my past heartbreak, people who knew me only as I was now. There was something freeing about building connections from scratch, without the shadow of my failed relationship coloring their perception of me. 8 months after the proposal, I finally sold the engagement ring. I got less than half of what I had paid for it, but the money was not the point. Letting go of that physical reminder was symbolic, marking a new chapter. I used the funds to book a 3-week trip to Portugal and Spain, countries I had always wanted to visit but had never prioritized. That solo trip was transformative. Away from familiar surroundings and routines, I gained perspective on what had happened. I realized that while Jessica had betrayed my trust, our breakup had ultimately freed both of us from a relationship that was not what either of us truly needed. The pain had been necessary, even if neither of us would have chosen it. By the 1-year anniversary of the proposal, I had created a life I genuinely enjoyed. My apartment was fully mine, decorated according to my taste with no lingering ghosts. I had been promoted again at work, now leading a team of developers on an exciting new project. I had made peace with my past and was cautiously open to the possibility of dating again, though not rushing into anything. I ran into Jessica once, at a coffee shop we had both frequented. She was alone, and after a moment of awkward recognition, we had a brief, surprisingly cordial conversation. She had started her own small design studio, a dream she had often talked about, but never pursued during our relationship. I genuinely wished her well and meant it. The anger had faded, replaced by an understanding that sometimes relationships end so that both people can become who they need to be. The most valuable lesson from this painful chapter was learning to trust my own worth. By refusing to accept less than complete honesty and commitment, I had honored myself in a way I never had before. The courage to walk away from someone who could not give me what I needed became the foundation for a stronger, more authentic life. Sometimes the most painful rejection becomes the most powerful redirection, and in that redirection I found a version of myself I never knew existed. Has a rejection ever turned into a blessing in disguise for you? Share your story in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more real-life experiences. Thanks for listening, and remember that sometimes the end of one chapter is exactly what you need to write a better story for yourself.